Everyone, so my digital window assignment, I chose the current conflict between the United States and Iran. I had to go back and read and see what I wrote in week three, and it's a personal topic, personal connection for me because I served in the Navy during Desert Shield on board the Abraham Lincoln, and because of my experience, it kind of has a personal connection for me. And being in the Persian Gulf during that time in the early 90s. But before my beginning my investigation, I believe the story would become more complicated and emotionally intense the longer I followed it online. So the I expected the news apps and social media algorithms to keep showing me dramatic headlines, military footage, the drones, and predictions about a larger war. And that is pretty much mostly what happened. So once I began searching for information, my feeds quickly became related uh, with stories and people that were making up stories. And I did see all those strikes and rising oil prices, disruptions, and one story led directly to another. And there never seemed to be a natural stopping point. So it made me realize that my digital window is not simply providing the information I requested. It was also designed to hold my attention and keep me engaged. And then you got these random talking heads thinking that they know everything, and they're just random people sitting in their basements acting like they're news anchors. And so the constant streaming of the updates made, every new headline feel urgent even when the article didn't contain much new information. So, to get a clearer understanding, I started comparing reports from the Associated Press, from Reuters, The Guardian, and they generally agree on main events, but each one emphasized different parts of the story. So, having that comparison really helped me recognize the difference between factual reporting and commentary. And reliable news reports usually explained where the information came from, what had been confirmed and what had remained uncertain. And then the opinion based content usually moved more quickly towards more blame and predictions or their own political conclusions. And one important lesson I learned is that responsible reporting may sound less confident because reporters are careful about what they claim. A dramatic headline can sound really convincing, but it doesn't necessarily make it accurate. So going forward, I plan to make several changes in how I consume information. First, I'm definitely going to read the complete article instead of reacting only to the headline. And one thing I did notice is that when they do have a strong headline that guides you, that draws you in, they're starting to have a summary because they're realizing more people don't are not reading the full story. And, second, looking at the publication date, because older stories are sometimes shared as though it just happened. And some people are using that, they're regurgitating the same ridiculous story 3 years later, painting it as a current story. So, and I'm going to check multiple independent sources, be accepting any important claim as a fact, and definitely pay more closer attention to whether information is confirmed or disputed or still developing. And one thing I have to do also is I have to limit how much time I spend following breaking news. The loud chimes, the chyrons that are constantly on the TV, the chyrons are what's used to make those breaking news graphics. Um, I remember years ago a news alert seemed to be reserved for an actual real fast moving and extremely important update. So, but today those alerts are often used so darn often to where you can't really tell what's really uh, true or an emergency. Staying informed is pretty important, I believe, and constantly checking for updates can increase your stress without improving your understanding. So, my commitment is to control my digital window instead of allowing the algorithms and media platforms to control my attention. And I notice there's a lot more people are thinking, well, you know what? I'm going to get away from Instagram and Facebook. I'm going to be shut them down for a little bit. Or I also noticed that MySpace is starting to make a resurgence because they're not going to have all those ads and all those attention grabbing things, and actually have it become an actual part of social media to where you can have your own real friends on there, not be bombarded by ads and fake news and all that kind of stuff. So, this investigation showed me that creating a shared reality requires patience, credible evidence in comparison, and a willingness to admit when the complete truth is not yet known.